Close your eyes and imagine the glow of an old Hollywood studio, warm light spilling across polished floors, whispers of costumes and camera shutters drifting through the air. It is the golden age of cinema, a world of glamour, illusion, and silver screens that shimmered like stars. And in the middle of it all stands a woman whose beauty was so striking, so luminous, that audiences around the world believed they were staring at perfection itself. But behind those mesmerizing eyes, behind the elegance, the fame, and the roles she performed, lived a mind no one in Hollywood could have imagined. Her name was Hedy Lamarr. To the world, she was the most beautiful woman ever captured on film. But in the quiet hours, after the lights faded and the cameras stopped rolling, she retreated into her own world of invention, sketches, equations, and impossible ideas. Ideas that would one day become the foundation of the wireless technologies we rely on every day. Long before Wi-Fi connected our homes, long before Bluetooth synced our headphones, long before GPS guided us through unfamiliar roads, a Hollywood actress and an exiled composer sat together at a wooden table, designing a frequency-hopping system they believed could help protect lives during war. Tonight, we're going to step gently into her story. Not the red carpet version, not the glamorous headlines, but the quiet, brilliant world she carried within her, a world few ever saw. So let the noise of the day slip away, let your thoughts soften, and allow this calm documentary to guide you into a place where beauty and genius intertwine in the soft glow of memory. This is the extraordinary life of Hedy Lamarr, the actress who gave the world the spark of Wi-Fi. Long before Hedy Lamarr became a Hollywood star, long before photographers fought for the perfect angle of her face or critics declared her the most beautiful woman alive, she was simply a quiet child growing up in Vienna, a child who loved mechanism more than dolls, curiosity more than conversation, questions more than answers. Her name then was Hedwig Eva Maria Kiesler, a name that carried no hint of fame, glamour, or invention. Instead, it belonged to a girl who spent hours staring at clocks, music boxes, and the intricate gears hidden inside her father's pocket watch. Vienna in the early 1900s was a city made of music and engineering. Elegant trams rattled down cobblestone streets, cafes filled with soft conversation and the smell of warm pastries. Musicians rehearsed behind open windows, their scales drifting into evening air. And tucked somewhere within this vibrant city was a little girl who saw the world not as a series of objects, but as a collection of patterns waiting to be understood. While other children played, Hedy quietly dismantled things, toys, radios, simple household items, not out of mischief, but fascination. She wanted to know how each piece connected to the next, how structure created meaning. Her father, Emil Kiesler, noticed her curiosity. A banker by profession, but a philosopher at heart, he often brought young Hedy on long walks through Vienna. Their conversations were gentle and slow, marked by the rhythm of footsteps and passing trams. Emil explained how machines worked, how gears transferred energy, how trains changed speed, how engines breathed. He never talked down to her, never dismissed her questions. Instead, he treated her like a mind worth speaking to. And in those patient walks, something quietly bloomed inside her, a belief that curiosity was not only allowed, but valued. Her mother, Truda, was a different influence. A concert pianist with a commanding presence, she taught Hedy discipline, poise, and the art of performance. From her, Hedy learned how to sit gracefully at a table, how to greet guests with a soft smile, how to move with the confidence expected of a cultured young woman. But even as she learned these refinements, her mind wandered toward invention, toward the quiet thrill she felt when she solved a mechanical puzzle. She lived in two worlds, one of elegance and one of design. By the age of 10, Hedy was already noticed for her beauty, a beauty that made strangers pause, teachers speak softly, and shopkeepers offer extra sweets. But beauty was never what she valued. It felt even then like a distraction from the deeper world inside her. She cared more for how things worked than how she looked. Yet the world around her had a way of taking beauty seriously, even when the person wearing it did not. Her teachers described her as unusually bright, but easily bored. She excelled when curious and drifted when uninterested. She memorized information quickly, solved problems with instinctive grace, and viewed each subject like a structure to be understood. But no matter how well she performed in school, Hedy's mind was elsewhere, drawn to the elegant logic of invention. At home, she would sit by the window with a small toolkit her father had given her. She held screws and springs between careful fingers, turning each piece over as though reading a language only she understood. When she disassembled a music box, she didn't do it to break it, but to listen to the mechanism's heartbeat. She wanted to know why pressing one lever triggered a melody, why a gear advanced at a certain rate, why a spring could store and release energy like a living pulse. Her father encouraged her. He saw the spark in her eyes each time she unraveled a pattern or solved a mechanical riddle. He sensed, though he could never have guessed how far it would go, that his daughter's mind was wired for invention. In those moments, he felt proud, and in later years, when Hedy looked back on her life, she would remember those walks and those lessons as the beginning of everything. But childhood was not just discovery, it was also solitude. Hedy did not fit easily with other children. She was polite but distant, kind but quiet, intelligent but different. While other girls practiced dance routines or played elaborate games, Hedy observed them with gentle curiosity, unsure why she didn't feel the same excitement. She found social rituals confusing, but machines? Machines made sense. They followed structure, pattern, predictable elegance. Their logic made her feel at home. This quiet difference became even clearer as she approached her teenage years. Her beauty, now unmistakable, drew attention she did not know how to handle. People expected her to smile, to charm, to entertain with conversation. They expected her to become exactly what the world saw on the surface, a future socialite, perhaps an actress, certainly someone admired more for appearance than for depth. But inside, she was still the girl who loved the hidden language of gears and springs. At 14, she wrote small sketches of ideas in a notebook. Nothing grand, just problems she wanted to solve. How to improve the mechanism inside a music box. How to make the ignition of a car more efficient. How to store energy using springs and pressure in new arrangements. She did not think of herself as an inventor. She thought of herself as a girl who wondered. When she was 15, everything tilted. A prestigious acting school in Vienna announced open auditions. It was the kind of opportunity most young women dreamed of, but to Hedy, it was merely a curiosity. She wanted to observe the theater, understand the mechanism of performance. She wanted to see what drew people to the stage. But when she auditioned, quietly, hesitantly, something unexpected happened. Her presence was magnetic. Directors were struck by her eyes, her expression, the way she seemed both delicate and composed. They saw potential, not as a thinker, not as a tinkerer, but as an actress. Hedy's emotional world shifted. She felt herself divided between two futures, one filled with invention, the other with performance. Her mother encouraged the stage, believing it offered prestige, beauty, and possibility. Her father supported whatever made her curious, though he worried the theater might overshadow her deeper interests. And Hedy herself? She stood in the middle, uncertain. Acting felt foreign to her, a world of lights, scripts, and deliberate illusions. But it also fascinated her. Every performance was a puzzle. Every character was a structure. And every scene felt like a system of emotion she could study, understand, and eventually master. Acting, in its own strange way, became a form of engineering, the engineering of feeling. And so, at 16, Hedy entered the stage. She began performing small roles in Viennese theaters, absorbing every detail with quiet intensity. She studied the way actors moved, the rhythm of dialogue, the technical process behind lighting and staging. She observed the machinery controlling the curtains, the gears powering the stage lifts, the levers that opened trap doors. Her fascination with mechanics never faded. It simply intertwined with her new world of performance. But as she gained early success, the first shadows crept in. Hedy's beauty, admired for years, now became a lens through which people saw her completely. Directors praised her looks more than her talent. Audience members spoke about her elegance more than her skill. And while she accepted this attention politely, a quiet frustration grew inside her. She wanted to be understood, not admired. But the world rarely understood women like her. Women whose minds moved quietly, whose brilliance was not loud, whose talents hid beneath the sparkling surface. At 17, Hedy landed a role that would change everything. A small film studio noticed her stage performance and invited her to screen test. She stood in front of the camera, uncertain, yet the moment the lights warmed her skin and the frame settled around her face, the crew fell silent. They saw a star, not because of her skill, though she had it in abundance, but because her presence was undeniable. Even without speaking, she captured attention like a flame captures the eye in a dark room. Offers followed. And for a moment, Hedy felt pulled by the momentum of a world she never sought, yet could not entirely resist. She traveled through studios, met producers, read scripts, and learned the culture of early European cinema. But behind all this glamour, she kept her notebooks close. She wrote ideas between scenes. She sketched inventions on the backs of scripts. She observed machines behind the cameras with more interest than the scenes being filmed. Her dual worlds, invention and performance, grew in tension. One fed her mind, the other shaped her destiny. And though she did not yet understand the shape of her path, she sensed something quietly profound, that both parts of her life, even the glamorous one she did not ask for, would eventually lead her to something extraordinary. But destiny has strange timing. When Hedy turned 18, fame arrived like a sudden storm. A director cast her in a film called Ecstasy, a role that would thrust her into international controversy. The film was bold, provocative, and far ahead of its time. Overnight, Hedy became a symbol, not of intelligence, not of invention, but of beauty and scandal. The world she had barely entered now swallowed her whole. Her life changed, her reputation changed, and her future, once filled with quiet curiosities and gentle inventions, veered toward a path she had never wanted. The aftermath of Ecstasy reshaped Hedy's world in ways she could never have anticipated. What had begun as the curiosity of a young actress suddenly exploded into international scandal. Newspapers printed her face across their front pages, attaching headlines she wished she could tear down with her own hands. Critics spoke of the film's boldness, its controversy, its defiance of convention, but very few spoke of Hedy as a person. They spoke of the character she played, of the beauty captured on film. And just like that, the world began to define her by something shallow and incomplete. This attention unsettled her. She was barely 18, still filled with the quiet curiosity of a girl who loved the inner workings of clocks and machines. She did not understand how a few scenes in a film could overshadow her entire being. She wished people would look deeper, see the mind behind the face, notice the thoughtful young woman who preferred invention to glamour. But the noise of the scandal was too loud, and the whispers of her true self were drowned beneath it. In this vulnerable moment, she crossed paths with Fritz Mandl, one of the richest and most powerful arms manufacturers in Austria. He was older, powerful, charming in a way that felt calculated, and immediately captivated by her beauty. Fritz pursued Hedy with an intensity that felt overwhelming. He sent flowers, invitations, and promises of protection from the scandal that threatened to overshadow her young career. To many, his interest seemed flattering. But Hedy sensed a shadow beneath his attention. Still, the pressure of public scrutiny weighed on her, and Fritz offered an escape, or so she thought. At 19, she married him, imagining perhaps stability, or at least a quieter life, away from the harsh lights of early fame. The wedding was grand, extravagant, and surrounded by guests in uniforms and gowns. But behind the elegant ceremony lay a truth Hedy would soon face. Her husband was not seeking a partner. He was seeking possession. Almost immediately, Fritz began to reshape her life. He forbade her from acting. He restricted her movements, monitored her friendships, and ensured she could never venture far from his side. He filled their home with guests, powerful men involved in politics, arms manufacturing, and the looming tension of a Europe inching closer to war. Their dinners were elaborate, filled with elegant silverware and heavy conversations about weapons, torpedoes, and emerging military technologies. To Fritz, Hedy was an ornament, a symbol of status and beauty to charm his associates. But to Hedy, these gatherings became something else entirely. She listened. Night after night, she sat quietly at her husband's table as men spoke openly about engineering challenges, weapon failures, and the complexities of radio-controlled torpedoes. They believed she was too beautiful to understand, too trivial to absorb their conversations. They dismissed her as a silent decoration. But Hedy, with the mind of a lifelong tinkerer, absorbed every detail like water sinking into soil. While Fritz underestimated her, she studied his world, the mechanics of weapons, the failures in torpedo guidance systems, the engineering principles behind radio technology. She learned how signal interference caused torpedoes to veer off target. She learned how single-frequency controls could be jammed by enemy forces. And she learned how these limitations shaped the strategies of nations preparing for war. Each dinner became a secret classroom. Each conversation became a puzzle. Yet her marriage grew darker. Fritz became increasingly controlling. He ordered guards to follow her, restricted her independence, and treated her intellect as a threat rather than a gift. When she attempted to speak about technology or curiosity, he silenced her with cold authority. He believed she existed only to serve his image, never imagining the mind beneath her poised exterior. And while she rarely argued, an inner fire grew, a determination, a quiet rebellion shaped by intelligence and frustration. Hedy began to plan. She observed the routines of the household, the behavior of the guards, the structure of the rooms, the vulnerabilities in the security Fritz believed impenetrable. Each detail became part of an invisible map she created in her mind. She knew she needed to escape, not only to reclaim her freedom, but to protect the world from the man she had unknowingly married, a man who sold weapons to those who darkened Europe's horizons. Her opportunity came quietly, like a whisper. One night, during yet another large gathering of military officials, Hedy noticed that Fritz was distracted, engrossed in conversation with international guests. She slipped away, not to flee, but to begin the careful work of planning her eventual departure. She collected jewelry and valuables she could sell for funds. She hid them in a small bag. She observed the rotation of guards and the weakest point in her house's evening routine. For months, she prepared in silence. Then, one evening, dressed as a maid and carrying only a small suitcase, she slipped out of the mansion and disappeared into the Vienna night. She moved through back alleys, boarded a train, and fled Austria while the household remained unaware that she was gone. When Fritz realized she had escaped, she was already across the border, her past dissolving behind her like mist. She traveled alone through Europe, using her wits, resources, and determination. Her plan was both simple and audacious: to reach London, and then, from there, find a way to America. Hollywood, strangely, offered freedom. Not because she loved acting, but because acting offered independence, a life where she could control her own choices. In London, fate intervened once again. She met Louis B. Mayer, the powerful head of MGM Studios. He knew who she was, the European actress surrounded by scandal, and saw an opportunity to bring a new star to Hollywood. But Hedy, wiser now and fiercely determined, negotiated with him on her own terms. She boarded the ship to America not as a frightened escapee, but as a woman who understood her worth. During the Atlantic crossing, she reinvented herself. Hedwig Kiesler faded. Hedy Lamarr emerged. When the ship reached New York, the press surrounded her, mesmerized by her beauty, unaware of the story she carried, a story of oppression, escape, intelligence, and a mind brimming with ideas. Hollywood welcomed her with open arms, believing they had gained a glamorous star. They had no idea they had also gained an inventor. Her new life began in the glow of studio lights, but her mind remained tethered to the mechanical puzzles she had learned during her marriage. And soon, those puzzles would lead her toward an invention that would shape the future. When Hedy Lamarr stepped onto American soil for the first time, she felt something she had not experienced in years. The quiet sense of possibility. The roaring engines of the ship faded behind her, and the city before her vibrated with a kind of restless energy she had only imagined. New York in the 1930s was alive, bright, impatient, a place where ambition crackled through the air like electricity. It overwhelmed her senses, yet it filled her with a deep, steady calm. She had escaped the cage of her past, and now the world lay open before her like a blank page. Louis B. Mayer wasted no time crafting her Hollywood persona. He saw her face as a commodity, her presence as a promise of profit. On the ship, she had proved her intelligence with a fierce negotiation, refusing his low offer and then dazzling him with her presence at the onboard dinner hall. But Mayer still believed she was, above all, a star to be shaped. So when she arrived in Los Angeles, she walked straight into a world of cameras, contracts, and expectations. Hollywood was a machine, one she would soon learn to navigate with the same quiet precision she once used to take apart clocks and radios. The moment she entered the MGM gates, the studio executives stared. Her beauty was unlike anything they had seen, not simply striking, but haunting, layered with intelligence and mystery, directors whispered. Cameramen paused. Stylists circled her like astronomers discovering a new star. Some said she was the most beautiful woman in the world. But Hedy listened to these comments with the same calm distance she had developed in Europe. She understood their fascination, but she also knew beauty could be a trap. Hollywood didn't just admire beauty, it consumed it. Soon she found herself in acting classes, script readings, costume fittings, and endless publicity sessions. She sat in makeup chairs where artists studied the angles of her cheekbones, the curve of her lips, the depth of her eyes. They talked about lighting, camera lenses, and the geometry of her face, as though she were a sculpture rather than a person. But while they focused on surface details, Hedy observed the machinery around her. She studied film cameras with quiet fascination, noting how light passed through lenses and transformed into moving images. Sometimes she asked the technicians questions, thoughtful, precise questions, and they would stare, surprised that she noticed the inner workings rather than the glamour. She watched how reels fed through the camera body, how the shutter controlled exposure, how frames moved one after another like a sequence of ideas. Hollywood didn't realize it, but she was learning its mechanics with the same curiosity she once brought to her father's watch. And while she delivered her lines flawlessly, it was the hidden worlds behind the scenes that fascinated her most. During her early films, she played exotic beauties, mysterious women, and shimmering figures shaped by the expectations of the time. Critics praised her presence, but she felt the roles offered little challenge. Directors wanted her to be captivating, not complex. Audiences wanted to gaze, not understand. Yet Hedy performed with grace, building her reputation role by role, film by film. She moved like a star, but thought like an engineer. Her home in Beverly Hills became her sanctuary. While other actresses attended lavish parties, Hedy spent her evenings surrounded by tools, blueprints, and small mechanical parts. She filled drawers with wires, gears, springs, and broken pieces of gadgets she intended to study. Her dining table often held more sketches than plates. She subscribed to scientific journals, collected articles on new technologies, and studied the radio systems emerging from wartime research. Hollywood believed she spent her evenings resting, bathing, or socializing with the upper class. But behind closed doors, Hedy sat alone with a soldering iron and a pencil, building devices no one expected an actress to imagine. Despite the glamour around her, she often felt lonely. The roles she played did not reflect her mind. The people she met did not understand her curiosity. She moved through glittering rooms filled with laughter and applause, yet in her chest lived a quiet ache. The ache of being misjudged, misunderstood, and underestimated. Fame dimmed many things, including the human capacity to look beyond the surface. But Hedy refused to let the world define her. She began visiting hobby shops in disguise, slipping in unnoticed to purchase components. She read books on engineering, aeronautics, and wartime strategy. She followed developments in radio communication, learning how frequency bands worked and how signal interference disrupted remote systems. She carried notebooks everywhere, to studios, to sets, even to costume trailers, filled with sketches, equations, and unfinished concepts waiting to take shape. Her mind was a place of constant invention, but she kept her inner world hidden. Hollywood was not a place that welcomed intellectual women. In an industry shaped by image, an actress with a brilliant mind was an anomaly, one people did not know how to approach. So Hedy smiled when expected, charmed when necessary, and kept the truth of herself tucked safely behind her eyes. During this period, the world beyond Hollywood was changing rapidly. Europe trembled under the rise of Adolf Hitler. Austria, her home, was slipping toward darkness. She received letters from friends back home, describing fear, uncertainty, and the growing shadow of war. Hedy worried constantly about the people she had left behind, ordinary citizens who could not simply board a ship and escape. She felt guilt, grief, and a fierce desire to help in any way she could. That desire became the spark for something extraordinary. One evening, after a long day of filming, Hedy attended a small Hollywood gathering. It was the kind of party where influential guests traded stories about art, politics, and innovation. Musicians played softly, drinks clinked. The room glowed with candlelight, and at that party, she met a man who would change the trajectory of her life. Composer and pianist George Antheil. George was known for his wild creativity. He built mechanical pianos and composed avant-garde pieces that pushed the boundaries of sound. He understood rhythm, structure, and mechanical timing. To most, his work seemed eccentric. To Hedy, it was familiar. It reflected the same blend of imagination and engineering that shaped her own mind. They talked for hours, slipping easily between topics: music, mechanics, war, invention. As they spoke, Hedy realized something rare. George saw her not as a star or a beauty, but as an intellect. He asked questions about her ideas. He listened. And for the first time in years, Hedy felt fully seen. Their conversation drifted toward the war in Europe and the technological challenges nations faced. She spoke about the dinner discussions she overheard during her marriage, about torpedoes, radio signals, jamming, and the devastating consequences of failed guidance systems. George responded with insights about frequency in music and the mechanics of synchronized sound. A spark ignited between their thoughts. Hedy described the problem. Radio-controlled torpedoes could save lives by improving accuracy, but they were too easy to jam. A single frequency could be interrupted with noise, George explained how player pianos used synchronized rolls to produce music. Hedy's mind leaped forward. What if a torpedo and its controller could switch frequencies together, jumping between them rapidly, unpredictably, the same way a player piano followed predetermined positions on a roll? A new idea began to form, delicate but brilliant. In the flickering light of that Hollywood evening, surrounded by chatter and music, Hedy and George conceived the seed of what would become one of the most important communication inventions of the 20th century: frequency hopping spread spectrum. But invention does not happen in an instant. It unfolds slowly, like a flower opening, and Hedy's journey toward this invention was only beginning. In the weeks after her conversation with George Antheil, Hedy Lamarr felt a growing sense of purpose humming quietly beneath the surface of her Hollywood routine. While the studios pressed her into new roles and new publicity tours, her mind drifted constantly toward the idea she and George had stumbled upon that night. The idea of guiding torpedoes through rapidly changing radio frequencies, preventing enemy forces from intercepting or jamming the signal. It was a thought that refused to let go, a whisper that followed her into costume fittings, trailed behind her on film sets, and lingered in her mind even as she smiled on red carpets. She began inviting George to her home, where the two of them would sit at her dining table, surrounded by notebooks, sketches, and mechanical parts. The chandelier above them cast soft light over the scattered pages, illuminating equations and diagrams that did not appear to belong in the home of a Hollywood actress. They spoke quietly, deeply, lost in the rhythm of problem-solving. While the rest of the world saw Hedy as a glamorous star, George saw the truth. Her mind was brilliant, restless, and hungry for a challenge that matched its depth. Their idea grew slowly, shaped by long nights, bold questions, and the merging of two completely different fields, music and engineering. They studied the way player pianos synchronized melody with mechanical timing, using perforated rolls to determine which notes played and when. George explained how these rolls encoded sequences that could be read automatically, guiding dozens of keys to strike in perfect rhythm. Hedy listened, absorbing each detail, then began sketching ways the same kind of synchronized pattern could guide torpedoes. Soon, the invention took on its first shape, a system in which a torpedo and its remote controller would share the same rapidly changing frequency pattern, like two dancers following the same steps on a score. Enemy forces might try to jam one frequency, but by the time they interfered, the torpedo would already be operating on another. It would hop from frequency to frequency. A dance of precision, impossible to predict. And because the pattern would be encoded mechanically like a piano roll, both devices could stay synchronized without broadcasting the sequence. It was elegant. It was practical. It was decades ahead of its time. But outside her home laboratory, Hedy continued living the life Hollywood demanded of her. Directors called her to set for glamorous close-ups. Photographers asked her to pose as the perfect image of beauty. She delivered every performance with grace. But her mind was elsewhere, thinking of circuits, not costumes, of radio signals, not scripts. She carried blueprints in her handbag. She scribbled ideas in the margins of scripts. And when she returned home at night, she tucked away the gowns and jewelry and returned to the sanctuary of invention. She felt a deep urgency driving her. Europe was burning. Austria, the place where she grew up, had fallen under Nazi rule. Her people were in danger. Hedy wanted to use her mind's unusual gifts to help. She no longer cared about film reviews or Hollywood gossip. She cared about creating something meaningful, something that might save lives. And in George Antheil, she had found not only a collaborator, but someone who believed in her intellect without hesitation. Together, they refined the design. George contributed his expertise in synchronized mechanisms. Hedy contributed her deep understanding of weapon systems gained from those long, dark years of overhearing military conversations at her husband's dinner table. Their invention began as a concept, then a sketch, then a series of diagrams. Hedy built small prototypes from household parts and piano components. George tested timing mechanisms to ensure synchronization across frequencies. The breakthrough came one evening when George laid out strips of paper perforated like miniature piano rolls. Hedy realized that these rolls could be scaled down, synchronized, and sealed inside devices, one inside the torpedo, one in the controlling transmitter, so they changed frequencies in perfect unison. The mechanism would be protected from external interference, making jamming virtually impossible. They stared at the completed design together, both understanding its potential. It was simple, it was brilliant, and if adopted, it could save countless lives. But the world wasn't ready for the idea. Not yet. When they presented their invention to a patent attorney, he studied the diagrams with surprise. He had expected Hollywood glamour, not engineering, yet the logic was flawless. In 1942, the U.S. Patent Office granted Hedy Lamarr and George Antheil patent number 2,092,387 for a secret communication system. Hedy's name appeared on the document not as a movie star, but as an inventor, a rare recognition in an era when women were rarely seen in the world of science. They proudly submitted their invention to the U.S. Navy, and then the silence began. The Navy dismissed their idea, not because it lacked merit, but because they could not imagine something so advanced, so technical, being developed by a Hollywood actress and an eccentric composer. They believed the technology was impractical, too complex for wartime use, or simply unnecessary. Some officials even suggested Hedy would be more useful selling war bonds because of her beauty. It was a polite rejection wrapped in disbelief. Hedy felt the sting deeply, though she did not show it. She had offered the most brilliant solution she could create, only to be told once again that beauty was her value, not intelligence. She returned to Hollywood with a heavy heart, but not with despair. She continued to act, but her evenings were still filled with invention. She refined old ideas, explored new ones, and filled notebooks with sketches the world would not see for decades. Despite the rejection, she did not regret trying. In her heart, she knew the invention mattered. She knew it was ahead of its time, and history would soon prove her right. For now, though, she returned to the studio lights. As her acting career flourished, she starred in films that defined the golden age of Hollywood. Audiences adored her. Directors praised her performances. But beneath every role, every smiling publicity photo, lived a mind that continued to wander, a mind that still saw the world in patterns, mechanisms, and possibilities. Hollywood celebrated Hedy Lamarr as an icon of beauty. But in private, she remained the girl from Vienna, the girl who took apart music boxes, walked with her father through the city, and saw machinery as poetry. And while the Navy set her invention aside, the future waited patiently. Because the technology they dismissed, the invention they overlooked, would later become the foundation for Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and countless wireless systems around the globe. Hedy did not yet know this. She only knew that she had given the world something extraordinary. And even if the world did not understand her now, it one day would. Hollywood adored Hedy Lamarr, but it adored a version of her that was incomplete, a shimmering silhouette projected on theater screens, not the complex, curious woman who lived behind the image. The studios dressed her in jewels, lit her in gold, and gave her roles that emphasized her beauty, but rarely her depth. Audiences flocked to her films, mesmerized by the sharp angles of her face, the softness of her voice, the way she could fill a frame with a single glance. Yet, as the world leaned closer to admire her surface, Hedy felt her true self slipping further from view. She enjoyed performing, but she never loved the machinery of fame. The attention felt hollow, the praise misguided. Directors praised her expressions. She wondered about circuitry. Reporters asked about her beauty routines. She thought about patterns in radio frequency. Photographers begged for the perfect lighting. She wondered how engineers controlled light in projectors. She lived in two worlds, one built of glamour, the other of quiet, restless intellect. And each year, the distance between those worlds grew wider. Her acting career continued to ascend throughout the 1940s. She became a leading lady, starring in films filled with adventure, romance, and intrigue. Each role polished her image further. Hedy Lamarr, the mysterious, enchanting star. But though the cameras adored her, the studios rarely trusted her with roles that revealed complexity. Executives privately believed audiences didn't want depth from someone so beautiful. They wanted fantasy, not realism, ornament, not intellect. The misunderstanding weighed on her. She often returned home after long days on set, feeling strangely invisible. People saw her face everywhere, yet fewer and fewer people saw her. Her true self, the girl from Vienna who dismantled clocks and solved mechanical riddles, lived like a secret inside her chest. It was a part of her she did not share freely, because the world rarely invited it. Still, she found ways to cultivate her inner world. In her home laboratory, a small room lined with books, tools, and mechanical scraps, she continued devising new inventions. Her workshop was filled with half-finished prototypes, a soda tablet that dissolved into flavored drinks, a design for a more efficient traffic signal, new ideas for locking devices, new concepts for guiding airplanes. She sometimes worked late into the night, lost in the quiet joy of creation. Each invention reminded her of who she truly was, a mind capable of building things that mattered. But while Hollywood overlooked her intellect, those around her sometimes glimpsed it accidentally. A director once visited her home and found her adjusting a soldering iron over a half-dismantled device. His eyes widened with confusion. "Hedy, what are you doing?" he asked. She smiled softly. "Just thinking." He couldn't understand why a movie star would prefer tools over cosmetics, equations over scripts. But Hedy didn't need him to understand. She built these small islands of solitude to stay connected to the deeper parts of herself. Her friendships during this period were a mixture of genuine connection and careful distance. Some friends valued her humor, her warmth, and her kindness. Others were drawn only to her fame. She learned to navigate these relationships gently, never harsh, never bitter, but aware. The world had made her a symbol long before it tried to know her. And symbols are easy to admire, but hard to understand. Her personal life, meanwhile, was full of turbulence. Hedy married multiple times, 6 marriages in total, each beginning with hope and ending with disappointment. She longed for partnership, for someone who could match her mind and accept her contradictions. But her husbands, like the public, often saw only fragments of her. Some tried to mold her into their expectations. Others felt intimidated by her intelligence or confused by her dual nature. Glamorous but introspective, poised but restless, elegant but deeply technical. Each marriage chipped away at her heart in subtle ways, leaving behind layers of loneliness that fame only magnified. Romantic love remained elusive, partly because Hedy herself was difficult to categorize. She was a constellation of traits: fierce intellect, intense privacy, creative curiosity, emotional sensitivity. And few people took the time to understand how these pieces fit together. Yet even as her relationships faltered, her career continued forward. In the early 1940s, she starred in one of her most iconic films, Samson and Delilah. The role solidified her place in Hollywood history, cementing her image as one of the most breathtaking women ever captured on film. Audiences gasped at her beauty. Critics praised her presence. Studio executives celebrated her box office success. But behind the applause, Hedy felt the same quiet emptiness. Her invention, the frequency hopping system she developed with George Antheil, remained unknown, unused, unacknowledged. The Navy had shelved it, dismissing it as impractical. Hedy wondered whether she had wasted her talent inventing something no one wanted. She wondered whether her mind, her true gift, was destined to remain unseen. Still, she did not stop dreaming. Around this time, technology began evolving rapidly. Military researchers developed new communication systems, new weapons, and new ways of securing wireless signals. Though Hedy did not know it, her abandoned invention was beginning to reveal its importance. Engineers revisited the idea of frequency hopping. They studied how shifting signals across channels could resist interference. They developed modernized versions of the concept. Her invention wasn't forgotten. It was simply waiting for the world to catch up. Meanwhile, Hollywood continued shaping her image with unwavering force. Publicists crafted stories. Photographers shaped illusions. Hedy learned to perform off-camera as carefully as she performed on screen. She attended premieres in shimmering gowns, smiled graciously during interviews, and maintained the persona the world wanted from her. But even at the height of her fame, she felt a quiet disconnect between admiration and understanding. She often thought of Vienna, of the quiet walks with her father, of the mechanical puzzles she solved on her childhood floor, of the sense of being known, truly known, by the person who taught her to see the world with curiosity rather than vanity. Hollywood could never replace that feeling. During the 1950s, her film career began to slow. The industry evolved, new stars rose, and the studio system that had once controlled her life began to dissolve. Hedy starred in fewer films and spent more time at home, reflecting on the strange, winding path her life had taken. She was still admired, still recognized, still celebrated, but she felt increasingly detached from the world that had once consumed her life. The quieter years revealed something unexpected. Without the noise of fame, Hedy found clarity. She realized she didn't need Hollywood to validate her. She didn't need applause to feel accomplished. She didn't need the world's fascination to understand her worth. She had a mind that saw beyond her time, an invention waiting to be recognized, and a legacy forming quietly, invisibly, beneath the surface of modern technology. Though the world did not yet know it, Hedy Lamarr's contribution to history was not her beauty, nor even her films. It was the foundational spark of wireless communication, an idea born from brilliance, shaped by courage, and hidden behind the spotlight of a dazzling Hollywood career. Her journey forward from this point would shift from glamour to reflection, from visibility to invisibility, from admired star to forgotten genius, to ultimately one of the most important innovators of the 20th century. But that transformation belonged to the chapters yet to come. In the years after World War II, Hedy's invention sat quietly inside a government archive, untouched and unappreciated. Engineers who reviewed the patent dismissed it as too complex, too strange, or simply too unlikely to succeed. None of them imagined that its foundation would one day support the wireless world of the future, and so the brilliant idea she conceived in a Hollywood living room remained dormant, waiting for its moment. Meanwhile, Hedy continued building her life among the fading glow of the studio era. Hollywood was changing, and the polished, controlled world she once knew was dissolving into something new. She accepted roles more sparingly, choosing projects that allowed her to maintain her dignity rather than chase fading spotlight. But even with fewer films, she felt no panic, because her mind, not her fame, was the engine of her identity. At home, she returned to her inventions with renewed intensity. She sketched new ideas on scraps of paper, experimented with chemical formulas, and explored new mechanisms. Her curiosity was tireless, and she found comfort in the gentle rhythm of solving puzzles. In a world that judged her by appearance, invention remained the one place where truth mattered more than beauty. During these years, she developed several unusual concepts. One was a tablet that dissolved into water to create a flavored beverage, inspired by soldiers who lacked access to fresh supplies. Another was a new kind of traffic light design meant to improve efficiency in growing cities. And though some of her concepts were whimsical, each demonstrated her ability to see problems others overlooked. But the world still struggled to understand her. Journalists admired her beauty, but few asked what she was building in her workshop. Friends attended her glamorous gatherings without noticing the technical books tucked behind the bar. Hollywood was not a place that knew how to celebrate a woman who loved both mathematics and perfume, and so Hedy continued to live in the gentle solitude that had become her refuge. As the 1950s unfolded, technology advanced at a rapid pace. Engineers in military labs revisited ideas of protected communication, realizing that radio jamming was still a dangerous weakness. Some came across concepts eerily similar to Hedy and George's frequency hopping method. They refined the idea, tested it, and developed modernized approaches using new forms of electronics. The seed she planted was beginning to sprout. Hedy, however, remained unaware of these developments. She lived her life quietly, decorating her home, spending time with her children, and pursuing occasional roles. At night, she often sat by her window overlooking Los Angeles, thinking about the life she had lived. She had known glamour, danger, invention, escape, heartbreak, and triumph, all woven together in strange, intricate ways. She wondered whether people would ever understand the fullness of her journey. Her marriages continued to falter. She married and divorced multiple times, each relationship revealing the same recurring truth. Very few people could truly see her. Some were dazzled by her fame, others intimidated by her intelligence, and still others confused by her contradictions. She wanted to be loved for her mind as well as her heart, but such understanding was rare. These personal struggles pushed her deeper into introspection. She withdrew more into her inventions, her books, and her thoughts. Her children later recalled the tenderness behind her quiet moments, the gentle way she spoke when unguarded, the intelligence in her eyes, the desire to be understood beyond her beauty. She lived in a world that saw only surfaces, and her soul longed for depth. As the 1960s approached, Hedy began stepping away from the public eye entirely. The golden age of Hollywood was over, replaced by a new generation of filmmakers and stars. She no longer felt compelled to chase parts or charm producers. Instead, she retreated from the spotlight with a kind of soft dignity that reflected who she truly was. In 1962, her long-ignored invention resurfaced in an unexpected way. The U.S. military, developing secure communication systems for new technologies, incorporated frequency hopping as a core principle. They did not credit her. They did not contact her. They simply used the idea, unaware that it came from an actress whose brilliance had been overshadowed by her face. Hedy continued living quietly, unaware that her creation had been revived. She spent her later years in increasing privacy, avoiding interviews, preferring long walks, books, and time with her family. She aged gently, thoughtfully, as someone who had lived several lifetimes within one. Yet even as she stepped out of the spotlight, the work she had done in silence was beginning to shape the modern world. By the 1970s and 1980s, engineers developed communication systems that used frequency spread technology to protect signals from interference. These innovations formed the underlying framework for emerging wireless communication, Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, cell networks. All of them quietly carried echoes of the system she had designed decades earlier. Still, Hedy received no recognition, no awards, no compensation, no acknowledgement. Her contribution existed like a hidden thread woven through the world, invisible, essential, and uncredited. And yet she never sought applause. She did not chase public validation. The truth of who she was remained untouched by fame. A woman who saw patterns where others saw chaos, a woman whose mind lit up at the thrill of invention. In her later years, she lived simply, preferring peace over attention. She enjoyed gardening, reading, and reflecting on her past. She often thought of her father, the man who had nurtured her curiosity and taught her how machines breathed. His memory guided her even in old age, offering comfort and clarity. Then, slowly, something remarkable happened. Historians began researching her life in deeper ways. Engineers traced the origins of frequency hopping back through military documents. Journalists uncovered her patent. The truth emerged in pieces, like fragments of light filtering through a closed curtain. People began asking a new question. How had a Hollywood actress created the foundation of modern wireless communication? Recognition finally arrived. In 1997, Hedy Lamarr received the Electronic Frontier Foundation's Pioneer Award. She was in her 80s and lived in deep privacy, so she accepted the honor by phone. Her voice was soft, aged, and almost surprised. For the first time, the world saw her not as a beauty, but as a visionary. It was a moment she had waited for without ever expecting it. By then, she understood something profound. Brilliance is not always recognized in its own time. Sometimes it must wait. Sometimes it must be rediscovered. Sometimes it must outlive misunderstanding. Hedy Lamarr died in the year 2000 at the age of 85. She left behind film reels, photographs, children, quiet inventions, and a single patent that changed the world. Her ashes were scattered in the forests of Austria, returning her to the place where her mind first awakened. She left this world quietly, just as she had lived her truest moments. Today, every time someone connects to Wi-Fi, pairs a device with Bluetooth, follows GPS directions, or sends a wireless signal, a piece of Hedy's brilliance whispers through the air. Her legacy lives not in old movie posters, but in the invisible networks that tie the world together. She gave humanity more than entertainment. She gave it a way to communicate across distance, safely and freely. And though the world once saw only her face, now it recognizes her mind. Hedy Lamarr, the actress who dreamed like an engineer, created like a scientist, and lived like a quiet storm of imagination, finally takes her place in history, not as the most beautiful woman in the world, but as one of its most remarkable thinkers. Hedy Lamarr's invention had disappeared into silence, but the world was unknowingly moving toward it. Engineers across the globe searched for ways to protect wireless communication as technology evolved. Innovation accelerated, methods improved, and new architectures formed, yet none of them realized they were walking along a path Hedy had already mapped decades earlier. Her idea slept quietly, waiting for the right moment to be understood. Hedy's own life entered a quieter phase as her Hollywood career slowed. She had stepped away from the treadmill of film sets, publicity tours, and the pressure to maintain an impossible image. The glamorous spotlight that once followed her softened into something distant and optional. She found herself gravitating toward a simpler, more private existence. Her days unfolded gently, with slow mornings and peaceful evenings. Hedy enjoyed the freedom to think without instruction, to create without expectation. She filled her time with reading, writing, and small experiments that satisfied her restless curiosity. Her home became a sanctuary where invention could bloom without judgment. Her mind never lost its sharpness. Even without a workshop full of tools, she continued imagining solutions to everyday problems. She studied objects the way some people study faces, searching for patterns, flaws, and hidden potential. For Hedy, invention was not a profession, but it was a way of breathing. Her childhood often resurfaced in her thoughts, especially the memory of walking through Vienna with her father. She remembered how he explained the movement of trains, the rhythm of gears, and the logic behind every mechanical device they encountered. Those conversations had shaped her worldview more deeply than any director or producer ever could. They were the foundation of her creativity and the source of her quiet confidence. In contrast, Hollywood had offered a different kind of education. It taught her how easily people mistake surface for substance. The public praised her beauty, but very few took the time to understand the mind behind it. This misunderstanding had followed her into relationships, leaving echoes of loneliness, even in moments of admiration. Hedy's personal life grew more complicated as the years passed. She married several times, each marriage filled with hope that someone might finally understand her. But her husbands often saw her through the lens the world had created, glamorous, enigmatic, and silent. They did not see the woman who studied engines, read technical manuals, and solved problems in her sleep. These disappointments pushed her deeper into privacy. She created emotional distance, not out of bitterness, but out of self-preservation. Her workshop and her ideas became the place where she felt most understood. It was there that she remembered who she was beneath the layers of Hollywood illusion. During this period, the world beyond her home was changing rapidly. Nations expanded their military communication systems, pushing for stronger protection against interference. Researchers explored new ways of securing radio signals, yet many solutions felt incomplete. They needed something elegant, something adaptable, something already imagined by a forgotten inventor. Hedy had no idea that her frequency-hopping concept was resurfacing. She lived quietly, unaware that her once-dismissed patent was becoming relevant again. Her invention slowly threaded itself into new designs as scientists revisited old theories. Though she remained in the dark, her influence was quietly spreading. By the 1960s, engineers had adopted modernized versions of spread-spectrum technology. They understood that shifting frequencies made signals harder to jam or intercept. This idea formed the core of several communication designs, including early satellite systems. The seed that Hedy planted was beginning to grow roots deep beneath technological soil. Hedy spent these years living away from the noise of her past. She focused on her children, offering them the affection and understanding she had longed for herself. She shared her curiosity with them, teaching them how to observe carefully and think independently. To them, she was not a fragile Hollywood figure, but a mother with a mind that sparkled. Her children later spoke of her as tender, intelligent, and deeply perceptive. They described how she could fix broken objects with ease, diagnose problems instinctively, and find solutions that others overlooked. To them, her brilliance was not surprising. It was simply who she was. They saw the complete woman long before the world saw the inventor. As the 1970s approached, new communication technologies emerged that relied on digital processing. These advancements allowed engineers to implement concepts once considered impractical. Spread-spectrum communication began forming the backbone of secure transmissions. The world was unknowingly preparing to build upon Hedy's idea. Still, recognition had not reached her. She lived modestly, drifting further from her Hollywood identity. Some remembered her films, others remembered her beauty, but no one yet knew her impact on global communication. She walked through life as a legend of the past, not realizing that her greatest legacy was tied to the future. In the 1980s, a remarkable shift occurred. Researchers, digging through historical patents, found a familiar name attached to a groundbreaking idea: Hedy Lamarr. The discovery stunned them. How could a Hollywood actress have conceived a communication system so advanced it was now essential? This revelation traveled quickly through academic circles. Engineers began referencing her patent when teaching the evolution of wireless communication. Historians re-examined her life, piecing together the story of a woman whose intellect had been overshadowed by her image. Slowly, the narrative around Hedy Lamarr began to change. By the early 1990s, journalists reported on her scientific contributions with growing fascination. Interviews resurfaced, biographies were drafted, and documentaries began taking shape. People realized they had underestimated her in ways both profound and unfair. The world had adored her beauty, but had failed to see her brilliance. Recognition culminated in 1997 when the Electronic Frontier Foundation awarded her the Pioneer Award. For the first time, Hedy Lamarr received formal acknowledgement for the invention she had once offered to the Navy. She accepted the award by phone, her voice soft and grateful. In a single moment, the world finally spoke to her mind, not her face. Hedy approached her final years with a quiet mixture of gratitude and introspection. She understood the strange irony of her life, that her greatest achievement had been invisible for decades. She felt relieved to know the truth had emerged, even if it arrived late. To her, recognition mattered less than the knowledge that she had contributed something meaningful. She continued living privately, speaking to only a few close friends and family members. The outside world saw her as reclusive, but she simply preferred peace after a lifetime of scrutiny. She spent her time reading, listening to music, and reflecting on the many phases of her life. Behind the quiet, her mind remained as vibrant as ever. Hedy passed away in 2000 at the age of 85. Her ashes were returned to Austria, where they were scattered in the forests of her childhood. It was a fitting return to the place where her imagination first awakened. She left behind a legacy that spanned continents and industries. Today, her influence exists in nearly every wireless device. Wi-Fi connections rely on her principles. Bluetooth networks move across frequencies she once imagined. GPS systems depend on the same underlying mathematics she sketched in her notebooks. Her brilliance has become a part of daily life. Hedy Lamarr's story reminds the world that genius can exist in unexpected places. Her invention shaped modern communication more profoundly than most people realize. And her resilience in the face of misunderstanding remains an inspiration to dreamers everywhere. She proved that intelligence is not defined by appearance, and that great minds often walk alone. Though many knew her as a Hollywood beauty, history now knows her as an innovator whose work changed the world. Her legacy is a quiet hum in every wireless signal, a whisper of thought carried through the air. Hedy Lamarr lives on not only through film, but through the invisible networks that connect us. Every signal that moves from one device to another carries a trace of her imagination. Hedy Lamarr's quiet years began at a time when the world around her was transforming faster than ever before. While she moved through life in gentle routines, global communication was expanding into something vast and interconnected, built on invisible signals stretching between cities, nations, and continents. Engineers experimented with new systems that allowed information to travel safely across distance, unaware that a Hollywood actress had envisioned the same ideas long before them. The world was finally growing into a future shaped by her imagination. Even though her own role in that future remained unknown to her, Hedy sensed a strange feeling of change in the air. She no longer lived in the dazzling brightness of her Hollywood prime, yet she felt no sense of loss as the spotlight drifted away. After decades of being admired, misunderstood, and shaped by others, she now welcomed the soft privacy that surrounded her days. In this quiet space, she could breathe again, not as a star, but as herself. Her home became a place of calm reflection, filled with books, memories, and the lingering hum of ideas she had carried since childhood. She spent her mornings enjoying simple comforts, letting the sunlight fall gently across her living room as she leafed through magazines or listened to music. Afternoons brought soft conversations with her children or old friends, moments that grounded her in ways fame never could. She found comfort in the gentler pace of life, feeling as though she had finally stepped into a rhythm that matched her soul. Though she no longer maintained a formal workshop, Hedy's mind still worked like one. She continued to notice small inefficiencies in daily life and imagined clever ways to improve them, sketching ideas on the back of envelopes or in the margins of newspapers. Sometimes she would take apart a household item just to inspect how it was built, her curiosity as alive as it had been in her youth. Even when she wasn't inventing formally, she approached everything with the quiet logic of an engineer. Memories of her childhood returned to her often in these years. She could still picture herself walking beside her father in Vienna, listening to him describe the mechanisms inside trains and machines with patient enthusiasm. Those early conversations shaped her in ways no studio or producer ever could, teaching her to see the world as a system of interconnected parts. The memory of his voice became a guiding light she held close, especially in her later years. Hollywood felt like another lifetime entirely, a glittering world she had stepped into and out of with surreal grace. She remembered the long filming days, the noise of photographers, and the endless expectations placed upon her beauty. Yet, when she thought back on her films, she felt neither regret nor nostalgia, only a soft understanding of how that chapter had shaped her journey. Acting had given her independence and opportunity, but it had never defined her. Her personal life carried more complicated reflections. Hedy had married several times, each relationship filled with hope that someone might see the person behind the beauty. But most of her husbands loved the idea of her more than the reality. They admired her charm and elegance, but rarely understood the depths of her intelligence or the intensity of her curiosity. Over time, these misunderstandings settled into a quiet ache that she learned to carry without bitterness. This emotional distance eventually became a kind of doorway into deeper solitude. After each heartbreak, she pulled back gently into her inner world, finding solace in thought, invention, and the company of her children. Those who truly knew her described her as tender, patient, and perceptive, far from the cold beauty Hollywood had imagined her to be. In private, she was warm and thoughtful, with a mind that never stopped dancing from idea to idea. Meanwhile, the world beyond her front door was inching closer to the technology she had outlined decades earlier. Engineers continued to refine secure communication systems, especially as the Cold War intensified and global networks expanded. New advances in radio technology echoed the principles of frequency hopping, proving its importance again and again. Without realizing it, they were rediscovering the same logic that once took shape in Hedy's living room. By the late 1970s, spread-spectrum communication became a foundational element in emerging wireless designs. The technique allowed signals to move unpredictably across frequencies, protecting them from interference and interception. It solved the exact problem Hedy and George Antheil had addressed during the war. Their idea had survived the silence of bureaucracy and the passing of decades, living on through the minds of engineers who had never heard their names. Hedy remained unaware of these developments as she continued her quiet life. She no longer read technical journals closely, and few people connected her to the evolution of these new systems. She lived modestly, her fame fading into the background, her scientific contributions still hidden beneath the public's outdated perception of her. But her legacy was already embedded in technologies that would soon shape the modern world. Recognition finally began to find her in the 1980s, when researchers traced the origins of spread-spectrum communication and discovered her 1942 patent. They were stunned to see her name beside George Antheil's, not as a figurehead, but as a legitimate inventor, listed with clear technical authorship. The discovery sparked a wave of curiosity about who Hedy Lamarr truly was. Historians and engineers realized they had overlooked a remarkable mind. Journalists soon followed, eager to understand how a glamorous actress had devised such an advanced system. Articles appeared describing her as a woman ahead of her time, and for the first moment in decades, the world looked beyond her beauty. Interviews resurfaced, documenting her intelligence and her quiet love of invention. The narrative around Hedy shifted from celebrity to visionary, from screen idol to scientific pioneer. This recognition reached an emotional peak in 1997 when the Electronic Frontier Foundation awarded her the Pioneer Award. It was a profound moment of validation, not only for her invention, but for the decades she had spent feeling unseen. Hedy accepted the honor by phone, her voice soft and touched by the acknowledgement. After so many years, the world was finally speaking to her mind rather than her appearance. The late recognition gave her a gentle sense of peace. She had not invented for fame or reward. She had simply followed her curiosity and her desire to help during a time of war. But knowing that people finally understood her work helped close wounds she had carried quietly for years. It allowed her to reflect on her past with a softer heart. In her final years, Hedy withdrew even further into privacy, choosing a life of reflection over one of public engagement. She spent her time reading, watching nature outside her window, and speaking with loved ones by phone. Her humor remained intact, her insights sharp, and her mind lively. She aged with a quiet dignity that matched her true character more than Hollywood ever had. When she passed away in 2000 at the age of 85, her story was still unfolding. Her ashes were returned to Austria, where she had spent her childhood exploring ideas that would one day change the world. It felt fitting that she returned to the same forests and streets that had nurtured her first moments of wonder. Her journey had come full circle in the most poetic way. In the years after her passing, her legacy only grew stronger. Documentaries and books amplified her story, revealing the depth of her contribution to those who had never known it. Engineers celebrated her insight, while students found inspiration in her journey from misunderstood beauty to scientific pioneer. The world embraced her fully, finally recognizing the brilliance behind the face. Today, her invention is woven into the fabric of everyday life. Every Wi-Fi connection depends on her principles. Every Bluetooth pairing echoes her early sketches. Every GPS signal travels across a system that reflects her vision. Hedy Lamarr's legacy is not found only in old film reels or glamorous photographs. It lives in the invisible architecture of global communication. Her brilliance shaped the modern world as quietly as a signal crossing the air. And through that quiet, she continues to touch millions every day. Hedy Lamarr entered the later stage of her life with a sense of calm detachment from the fame that had once followed her everywhere. The spotlight that used to burn brightly above her now flickered only in distant memories, and she felt no urge to chase it again. She had spent so much of her youth being defined by the gaze of others that the soft privacy of her older years felt like a long-awaited gift. In this quiet distance, she discovered a version of herself she had never been allowed to fully explore. Her world gradually shrank into a circle of people she genuinely trusted, and she preferred it that way. She communicated mostly through the phone, speaking to her children and a few close friends who understood the depth of her character. The silence around her was not loneliness, but relief, a gentle space where she could think clearly and live without performing. For the first time, she could exist simply as Hedy, not as a symbol or an icon. Yet outside her private life, the story of her scientific contribution was beginning to grow with surprising momentum. Historians revisited her wartime patent and uncovered a wealth of overlooked detail that revealed her true brilliance. Engineers who had spent decades refining wireless communication were shocked to learn that an actress had helped lay the foundation for their field. With every discovery, society began rewriting its perception of Hedy Lamarr. Her children watched this transformation unfold with a mixture of pride and tenderness. They had always seen their mother as a curious, inventive, and deeply intelligent woman, even when the world could not. They remembered the times she explained how objects worked, fixed mechanical problems with ease, and solved everyday challenges with elegant solutions. To them, her genius was never a surprise. It was simply a part of who she was. The public's larger rediscovery of Hedy created a strange duality in her legacy. People still admired her for the films she made, the glamour she embodied, and the allure that once made her the most beautiful woman in Hollywood. But now they also spoke her name in scientific contexts, referencing her as a pioneer of secure communication and modern wireless systems. This blend of identities, actress and inventor, made her story more captivating than ever before. As researchers continued exploring the evolution of secure communication, they realized how groundbreaking her original idea truly was. Frequency hopping spread spectrum technology, the system she once developed with George Antheil, had evolved into something essential for modern connectivity. Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, GPS, and countless military applications relied on the same core logic she had imagined decades earlier. Her influence extended invisibly across millions of devices carrying signals through the air. With each passing year, Hedy's relevance increased, even as she remained hidden from public view. She rarely appeared in interviews and avoided public events, choosing instead a life of reflection and quiet thought. Her later years were filled with moments of peaceful solitude, soft afternoons near the window, evenings spent reading or listening to music, and late-night conversations with loved ones. The calmness she found in these routines contrasted beautifully with the turbulence of her earlier life. Despite her physical withdrawal from the world, her presence in cultural conversations became stronger than ever. Feminist scholars and historians highlighted her life as an example of how society often limits women's perceived abilities. They argued that Hedy's intelligence had been ignored because she did not fit the conventional image of a scientist. Her story became a symbol of the countless overlooked contributions women had made throughout history. As the public re-examined her career, they also revisited her films, noticing the subtle intelligence behind her performances. Viewers found new appreciation for the nuance she brought to her roles, recognizing that she often infused characters with depth that exceeded the script. Her performances revealed hints of a woman who observed the world carefully, absorbing every detail. Even in fiction, she projected a quiet power that felt undeniably real. While the world celebrated her achievements, Hedy confronted her own memories with a mixture of gratitude and sadness. Fame had brought her opportunity, but also misunderstood expectations, shallow relationships, and emotional isolation. She had been admired but rarely known, seen but not understood. These experiences left marks she carried gently, acknowledging them without letting them define her. She often returned to memories of her father, the person who nurtured her curiosity long before the world knew her name. She remembered the way he explained the inner workings of machines, trains, and everyday objects with calm patience. Those early lessons shaped her mind and gave her a sense of wonder that lasted her entire life. His presence remained a quiet comfort, even decades after he was gone. In her final years, Hedy spent much of her time watching the world from the safety of quiet rooms. She listened to news reports, heard about technological breakthroughs, and occasionally remarked on how familiar those ideas felt. Though she didn't dwell on her patent, she recognized echoes of her thinking in the devices people used every day. Her invention had become part of the world, even if the world didn't always acknowledge it. The increasing recognition she received late in life brought her a quiet sense of closure. Articles, television specials, and academic papers praised her intelligence and pioneering spirit. She found herself celebrated not as a former Hollywood star, but as a visionary whose contribution shaped modern communication. This shift felt deeply meaningful, even if she experienced it from the privacy of her home. After her passing, the appreciation for her work only continued to grow. Documentaries and books explored her life with sensitivity, revealing both her brilliance and her emotional struggles. They portrayed her not as a flawless icon, but as a complex human being with dreams, pain, courage, and resilience. In that honesty, the world finally saw who she truly was. Her story also became an essential part of science education. Students learned about her invention, and the obstacles she faced, understanding how societal biases can obscure genius. Teachers used her example to inspire those who felt unseen or underestimated. Hedy's journey encouraged countless young minds to pursue innovation fearlessly. As wireless technology became even more central to daily life, her impact grew beyond expectation. Every smartphone connection, every Bluetooth device, every GPS navigation commanded a tiny tribute to her idea. Her influence traveled through the air in invisible waves, touching millions of people without their knowledge. In this way, she became a silent architect of the digital world. Hedy Lamarr's legacy remains powerful because it defies simple categorization. She embodied glamour and intellect, vulnerability and strength, creativity and precision. Her life revealed how deeply someone can be misunderstood and how profoundly they can still shape the world. Her story is a reminder that brilliance often hides beneath surfaces society overlooks, and in the end, her genius outlasted her fame. Her invention outlived her films. Her mind reshaped the world in ways she never witnessed, yet deeply deserved. Hedy Lamarr became more than a star. She became a quiet force of innovation that continues to guide the modern age. As the world moved deeper into the digital age, Hedy Lamarr's presence lingered quietly behind the screens and devices that shaped modern life. Her name was not always spoken aloud in the conversations of engineers and developers, yet the architecture they built depended on the logic she once sketched on paper. Every new wireless protocol that emerged, every innovation in secure communication, seemed to carry a faint echo of her long-ignored idea. And though she was no longer alive to witness it, her legacy began to reveal itself in subtle but profound ways. Wireless networks expanded rapidly across continents, becoming essential infrastructure for communication, navigation, and information exchange. People connected to one another through signals that shifted across frequencies with astonishing speed, protected by the very concept she had once offered to the Navy. The spread spectrum foundations of Wi-Fi and Bluetooth grew stronger with each technological advancement, forming the backbone of the modern world. In a sense, the invisible waves she imagined had now become the nervous system of global society. With this expansion came a rising curiosity about the origins of wireless technology. Historians and scientists traced the lineage of key ideas and were repeatedly drawn back to the 1942 patent co-authored by Hedy Lamarr and George Antheil. They were struck by the elegance of the system, simple in concept yet remarkably ahead of its time, and the fact that it had been conceived by people working outside traditional engineering circles. This revelation fueled a growing fascination with the hidden geniuses who lived in the margins of scientific history. Educational institutions began highlighting Hedy's story in courses about innovation, communication theory, and the ethics of recognition. Students learned not only about her invention, but also about the cultural barriers she faced as a woman in a male-dominated field. Teachers emphasized how brilliance can be overshadowed when society fixates on surface-level identity instead of deeper potential. Her life became both a technical lesson and an emotional one, illustrating the cost of misjudgment and the importance of looking beyond appearances. As more people discovered her contributions, they also became intrigued by the personal struggles she endured. Her beauty, once celebrated as a gift, had often functioned as a barrier that prevented people from taking her seriously. She had lived through decades of being admired for the very thing that obscured her true talent. When people learned this, they felt a mixture of sympathy and admiration, recognizing how much courage it must have taken for her to continue inventing in the shadows. In documentaries and biographies, Hedy emerged not as a glamorous icon, but as a complex, thoughtful, and deeply introspective woman. Her quiet intelligence, once overlooked, became the focus of her narrative. Writers described her as someone who saw patterns everywhere, constantly analyzing the mechanics of life while the world only praised her beauty. This duality, the seen and unseen, elevated her story into something almost mythic. While her legacy grew stronger, the world of technology advanced into arenas Hedy could have only imagined. Smartphones became ubiquitous, carrying thousands of signals that relied on spread-spectrum techniques every second. Wireless earbuds, home assistants, satellite-based networks, and encrypted communication all depended on concepts that mirrored her original design. Her influence resonated in nearly every direction, weaving through modern life like an invisible thread. As developers built newer systems, they found themselves returning to the principles she helped define. Frequency agility, interference resistance, and secure modulation remained critical features of wireless engineering. Even as algorithms and hardware improved, the foundational idea remained essentially the same. A signal that moved unpredictably across channels would always be harder to intercept. This resilience embodied the spirit of Hedy's invention, a blend of creativity and logic that proved timeless. Beyond the technical world, artists and storytellers found inspiration in her life as well. They created paintings, stage productions, and narrative films exploring her journey from overlooked inventor to celebrated pioneer. Hedy became a symbol of unrealized potential, misunderstood genius, and the way society so often fails to see the depths in people. Her story resonated deeply with anyone who felt unseen, underestimated, or misjudged. Her intellectual courage also became a guiding inspiration for young women entering STEM fields. Many students wrote essays explaining how Hedy's story encouraged them to pursue engineering, coding, or physics despite societal expectations. Her life taught them that intelligence exists in all places, not only in labs or universities. She proved that innovation can come from those who dare to think differently, regardless of background or profession. The more her story spread, the more people understood the tragedy of how she had been treated during her lifetime. She had offered her invention with the hope of saving lives during the war, only to be dismissed and placed in roles that prioritized her appearance over her intellect. This realization sparked conversations about the need for greater inclusivity in science, ensuring that no voice is overlooked simply because it challenges expectations. Her experience became a reminder of how many innovations the world might have missed. Tech companies eventually began acknowledging her contribution more openly. Exhibits at science museums featured her patent alongside modern devices that used its underlying concepts. Industry conferences mentioned her name when discussing the origins of wireless security. Even awards and scholarships were created in her honor, supporting young inventors who approached problems with the same unconventional brilliance she once displayed. As Hedy's legacy strengthened, her films took on new meaning as well. Viewers saw her not just as a glamorous actress, but as someone who carried a quiet, thoughtful depth beneath her performances. They appreciated how she brought intensity to roles that sometimes lacked substance, hinting at a woman whose mind was always working. The contrast between her public image and private brilliance became one of the most compelling aspects of her story. Her life also became a lens for exploring the broader challenges faced by women in creative and scientific fields. Many people cited her experience as a reason to reevaluate how industries define talent and potential. Her story encouraged movements aimed at recognizing overlooked contributors and dismantling outdated stereotypes. In this way, she influenced not only technology, but also culture and social awareness. Meanwhile, as wireless networks expanded across the world, engineers continually refined the technology she had inspired. They developed new modulation schemes, error correction methods, and adaptive frequency algorithms, all built on the foundation she helped create. Her invention proved so robust that it adapted seamlessly to future generations of technology. Even as systems became more complex, her idea remained central. In many ways, Hedy's late recognition became a poetic reflection of her own invention. Like a signal hopping across frequencies, her legacy had shifted through time, reappearing decades after being dismissed. It moved silently, unpredictably, until the world was finally ready to receive it. Her story mirrored the very system she conceived, resilient, hidden, and ultimately essential. By the early 2010s, Hedy Lamarr had become a permanent fixture in discussions about innovation and overlooked talent. Educational programs, online courses, and museums all highlighted her contributions. Her face, once printed on movie posters, now appeared in science exhibits and textbooks. She had transcended the boundaries of her former identity, becoming a multidimensional figure, celebrated across disciplines. The continued growth of global connectivity only strengthened her presence. Each generation discovered her story anew, amazed that a Hollywood actress could have shaped the world's digital infrastructure. Engineers cited her when designing futuristic communication systems, demonstrating how her idea still guided modern innovation. Her influence rippled outward, touching every new development in the field. Hedy Lamarr's legacy has become a testament to the quiet power of imagination. It reminds the world that brilliance can exist in unexpected places, waiting patiently to be recognized. Her life shows that creativity transcends the roles society imposes, and true intelligence often refuses to fit inside neat categories. She proved that a single idea, born in an unassuming moment, can shape the future for generations. Even now, her impact continues to grow, carried by the wireless signals that guide our daily lives. Her mind lives in every connection, every transmission, every invisible wave traveling through the air. She helped build the architecture of modern communication, even when no one believed she could. And through that architecture, she remains a quiet, constant presence. Hedy Lamarr was more than an actress, more than an inventor, and more than the labels placed upon her. She was a visionary who imagined a world connected by invisible threads long before the world was ready. Her story stands as a reminder that genius is often underestimated, misunderstood, or hidden beneath the most unexpected surfaces. Yet no matter how long it takes, truth has a way of rising. And through the vast humming network of wireless signals, her imagination still moves, traveling through the air, connecting millions, shaping the future in ways she once dreamed of in silence. As the digital world expanded into something vast and intricately connected, Hedy Lamarr's presence seemed to linger behind every signal that traveled through the air. Nearly every modern device relied on a form of communication she once imagined in the quiet of her home, long before the world understood its value. Her invention had evolved far beyond its original form, adapting to technologies she never lived to see, yet remaining grounded in the same elegant logic she had envisioned. In this way, her mind continued shaping the world even after her voice had faded. The early 21st century became an era defined by wireless interaction. Phones carried data across continents, laptops streamed information across invisible pathways, and households filled with devices that spoke to each other through packed clusters of frequencies. None of this would have been possible without the foundational structure of spread-spectrum communication. Engineers often spoke of the brilliance of frequency hopping, but were still surprised to learn that a Hollywood actress had conceived its earliest framework. Hedy's legacy grew stronger each year, driven by a world more connected than she could have dreamed. Wi-Fi routers became everyday household objects, bridging people across vast distances and making communication effortless. Bluetooth paired devices silently, allowing music, data, and information to flow without cables or interference. GPS satellites guided travelers, ships, and aircraft, using signals that relied on similar spread-spectrum principles. Her influence quietly pulsed through all these systems like an unseen heartbeat. As the world became increasingly digital, her story began reaching new audiences who found inspiration in her journey. Students studying computer science discovered her work and were astonished by how early she had recognized the importance of secure signal transmission. Women entering STEM fields saw in her a symbol of resilience, intelligence, and unrecognized contribution. Historians wrote articles and lectures explaining how society had overlooked her genius simply because she did not fit the typical mold of an inventor. Her life illustrated the tragedy of being underestimated, but it also showed the endurance of truth. Despite decades of being misunderstood, her idea survived bureaucracy, war, and technological evolution. It resurfaced at exactly the right moment, proving more relevant than ever. This resilience made her legacy all the more remarkable. An invention dismissed in one era had become essential in the next. As more people learned about her, they also became curious about the woman behind the technology. They discovered her complex life filled with ambition, heartache, creativity, and contradictions. She had been both strong and vulnerable, confident and insecure, glamorous and deeply introspective. This complexity made her story feel real and profoundly human, far beyond the mythologized version Hollywood once projected. Filmmakers and biographers began exploring the emotional depths of her journey. They highlighted the disconnect between her public persona and her private identity, showing how fame had overshadowed her intellect for most of her life. These portrayals added nuance to her character, revealing the loneliness she felt when people admired her beauty but failed to see her mind. Her story became a reminder of how easily society misreads those it claims to adore. One of the most surprising aspects of her legacy was how many industries benefited from her invention without knowing it. Tech companies incorporated spread-spectrum principles into countless devices, from medical equipment to military communication systems. The automotive industry relied on similar technologies for navigation and safety features. Even entertainment devices such as gaming consoles and smart TVs used wireless connectivity rooted in the same essential concept. Hedy's influence stretched into every corner of modern life. This widespread adoption increased the desire to honor her properly. Organizations created awards in her name, recognizing innovators who made contributions outside traditional pathways. Museums curated exhibits celebrating her dual identity as both actress and inventor, highlighting how she defied expectations at every turn. Her story encouraged people to question their assumptions about intelligence, creativity, and potential. Her image gradually transformed from glamorous Hollywood figure to symbol of hidden brilliance. Younger generations who discovered her through documentaries saw her not as a distant celebrity, but as a relatable figure of courage and ingenuity. They admired how she pursued invention even when no one encouraged her, and how she refused to let stereotypes limit the scope of her imagination. Her life offered them a blueprint for resilience and self-belief. In the academic world, scholars continued uncovering new layers of her contribution. Communication theorists analyzed the technical foundations of her patent, marveling at how accurately she predicted future challenges in signal security. Her approach was surprisingly modern, blending creativity with practicality in a way that engineers deeply respected. It became clear that her idea had not been a lucky guess. It had been a genuine act of technical insight. Her rediscovery also opened conversations about gender bias in science and innovation. Activists pointed to her story as evidence of how societal expectations had historically silenced women's intellectual achievements. They argued that her experience was not unique, but part of a broader pattern that needed to be acknowledged and corrected. Hedy became a symbol in this movement, representing both the injustice and the possibility of change. The more people learned about her, the more they realized how ahead of her time she truly was. She had recognized the importance of secure communication, before most militaries did. She had understood the potential of wireless transmission before personal computers existed. She had imagined concepts that would not become mainstream for 50 years. Her vision extended far beyond the boundaries of her era. As global networks became faster and more resilient, her invention remained central to their structure. Spread-spectrum communication protected signals as they traveled over crowded airwaves, ensuring reliability even in noisy environments. Engineers developed more sophisticated versions of the technique, but the foundational idea stayed intact. It was a testament to the strength and longevity of her original concept. Even as new technologies emerged, 4G, 5G, mesh networks, Internet of Things devices, her influence remained deeply embedded. Every device that connected wirelessly, every system that resisted interference, every protocol that spread signals across frequencies carried her intellectual fingerprint. Her invention had become like gravity, unseen, constant, and essential. Through this growing recognition, people developed a deeper understanding of how innovation occurs. They learned that great ideas often come from unexpected places, and that creativity doesn't follow linear paths. Hedy's journey demonstrated that brilliance thrives not in certainty, but in curiosity, the willingness to ask questions and see the world differently. Her mind embodied this approach with effortless grace. Her legacy also revealed how fragile recognition can be. She had lived most of her life believing the world would never appreciate her invention, yet decades later, she was hailed as a visionary. This contrast showed how time can alter perspective, revealing truths that were once hidden. Her story became a reminder that impact is not measured by immediate applause, but by long-term influence. As her name appeared in textbooks, documentaries, articles, and museum exhibits, a new generation grew up knowing her story from the start. To them, she was not just a Hollywood legend, but a crucial figure in the history of technology. They saw her as proof that intelligence thrives in unexpected forms, and that innovation can emerge from creative intersections. She became an enduring example of the power of imagination. Hedy's influence also extended into popular culture, where she became a symbol of brain and beauty duality. Artists created portraits, animations, and films that celebrated her complexity. Writers referenced her in novels and poems, using her as a metaphor for misunderstood intelligence. She became an icon not only of technology, but of human potential. The resurgence of interest in her life sparked conversations about how many other overlooked innovators might still be hidden in the shadows of history. People wondered how many ideas had been dismissed simply because they came from unlikely sources. Hedy's story encouraged deeper curiosity about these forgotten figures, opening a pathway for more inclusive narratives. As wireless communication continued evolving, some scientists proposed entirely new systems inspired by spread-spectrum principles. They designed adaptive frequency algorithms, quantum communication protocols, and advanced encryption models, all grounded indirectly in her foundational idea. Her influence persisted across generations of innovation, guiding technology into territories she could never have imagined. Hedy Lamarr's legacy became a living presence woven into the modern world, not through statues or awards, but through the endless flow of digital information. Every message sent across a wireless network, every device that connected to another, carried the quiet echo of her vision. Through these invisible signals, she continued shaping the world long after her lifetime ended. Her story stands as a reminder that genius does not always announce itself loudly. Sometimes it whispers from the background, carried on frequencies the world hasn't tuned into yet. And when the world finally listens, it discovers brilliance in places it never thought to look. Hedy Lamarr's life is proof that imagination leaves a trace, one that time cannot erase. Hedy Lamarr's resurgence in the modern world unfolded slowly, carried by whispers of recognition that had taken decades to reach her name. As the digital age accelerated, people grew increasingly curious about the origins of the wireless systems that shaped their lives, and in that search they rediscovered the overlooked inventor behind them. Her legacy resurfaced, like a long-lost frequency finally tuning into clarity, revealing a truth that had lingered in silence for far too long. The world was beginning to understand the depth of her brilliance. Historians and engineers were among the first to fully grasp how unprecedented her wartime invention had been. They examined her 1942 patent carefully, astonished by how clearly it anticipated the challenges of secure communication decades before they became mainstream concerns. It became evident that frequency hopping was more than a clever idea. It was a conceptual leap that positioned her among the earliest thinkers of digital-era signal protection. This realization marked a turning point in how her life was interpreted. As news of her scientific contributions spread, people found themselves drawn to the duality that defined her life. The contrast between the glamorous actress on screen and the sophisticated inventor behind the scenes fascinated audiences who had never considered the possibility that beauty and genius could coexist so naturally. Her journey revealed how deeply society could misjudge a person when limited by surface-level assumptions. This complexity transformed her from a mythic Hollywood figure into a multidimensional pioneer. Documentaries and biographies approached her story with renewed sensitivity, giving attention not only to her accomplishments, but to the emotional landscape that framed them. They portrayed the years she spent navigating a world that saw only her appearance, ignoring the vibrant intellect she kept quietly alive in her private world. Viewers felt a deep sense of empathy as they learned how often she was underestimated or dismissed, recognizing the strength it took for her to continue imagining solutions no one asked for. Her humanity became as compelling as her invention. The more people learned about her, the more they realized how significant her contribution was to the systems that defined modern communication. Engineers explained how her frequency hopping approach allowed signals to scatter across channels, making them harder to intercept or jam, and how this concept had become foundational to technologies like Wi-Fi, Bluetooth, and GPS. Even everyday devices, headphones, smartphones, smart home systems, owed part of their design to her early insight. Her influence had become woven into everyday life. Her story sparked wide discussions about the biases that shape recognition in science and innovation. Many people questioned how such a groundbreaking idea could be ignored, simply because it came from someone who defied the stereotypes of a traditional inventor. Her experience became a symbol of how easily society can overlook extraordinary minds when trapped by narrow expectations. It encouraged a deeper commitment to recognizing talent wherever it appears. Educators embraced her narrative as a teaching tool, introducing students to both her invention and her personal struggles. In classrooms, her life prompted conversations about perseverance, creativity, and the importance of resisting judgment based on appearance or background. Young people found inspiration in her courage to think differently at a time when few supported female innovation. Her legacy became a guide for those who felt unseen in their own pursuits. Her rebirth in the public imagination also reshaped the way her films were viewed. Viewers revisited her performances with a sense of wonder, noticing the intelligence in her expressions and the depth she brought to even simple roles. Scenes that were once admired purely for their glamour now felt layered with the unspoken world she carried within. This new perspective created a richer appreciation for her artistry and the mind behind it. As the world adopted newer forms of wireless technology, her contribution remained remarkably relevant. Engineers designing 4G and 5G networks continued to rely on principles related to frequency agility interference avoidance, and secure transmission, all rooted in the system she conceptualized. Her ability to imagine such forward-thinking ideas without formal training became a testament to the power of creativity over convention. She had envisioned possibilities far beyond the limits of her era. The scientific community honored her with awards and recognitions that helped rewrite the narrative of her life. Organizations highlighted her as a trailblazer, while museums displayed her patent alongside modern devices that used her foundational ideas. These acknowledgments served not only to validate her contributions, but also to correct a historical oversight that had persisted for decades. Hedy Lamarr had finally been placed where she belonged, among the great innovators of the 20th century. Her story resonated deeply within movements dedicated to promoting women in STEM. Advocates used her example to show how brilliance can be overlooked simply because it appears in unexpected forms. They argued that her life revealed the importance of creating inclusive environments where unconventional thinkers can flourish. Hedy's legacy became a symbol of both caution and hope in the ongoing fight for recognition. As the digital landscape continued to grow, her invention remained a stable foundation beneath its evolution. Even technologies she could never have imagined, autonomous systems, wireless sensors, smart cities, relied on principles related to her early ideas. This continuity proved how strong and adaptable her conceptual framework was, even across generations of innovation. Her vision had outlived the world that dismissed it, stretching into futures she never witnessed. Her resurgence in popularity touched not only the scientific community, but also the broader public. Artists created tributes to her, blending images of film reels with diagrams of frequency patterns to symbolize the unity of her two worlds. Writers referenced her in stories about overlooked brilliance, using her life as a metaphor for unseen depth. Her presence in culture shifted from nostalgia to reverence. Through this renaissance, Hedy Lamarr's life became a powerful reminder that genius often defies expectations. She proved that creativity is not limited by profession, appearance, or convention. It emerges where curiosity is allowed to thrive. Her story encouraged people to trust their instincts and nurture their ideas, even when recognition feels distant. She became a beacon for dreamers who walk paths others cannot yet see. Although she never lived to experience the full scope of her rediscovery, her influence became a permanent fixture of the modern world. Her invention traveled through billions of devices each day, connecting people across oceans and continents with seamless ease. Every wireless interaction carried a trace of her imagination, woven invisibly into the digital fabric of daily life. She had become a silent architect of connection. Hedy Lamarr's legacy ultimately reshaped how society understands brilliance. She showed that genius can reside in places the world overlooks, waiting for the right moment to be recognized. Her journey remains a testament to resilience, creativity, and the quiet power of ideas that refuse to disappear. And through the endless movement of wireless signals, her vision continues to guide the world forward. As the world continued embracing new technologies, Hedy Lamarr's place in history grew steadily more prominent, carried not by publicity campaigns or studio promotion, but by the undeniable truth of her contribution. Her invention had become so essential that engineers could no longer discuss the evolution of secure communication without referencing her work. And this shift placed her alongside the most influential innovators of the 20th century. The recognition she had been denied in life now formed the foundation of her legacy. Through this transformation, the world began to understand how far ahead of her time she truly was. Her patent became a widely studied document in both academic and professional circles. Professors analyzed its structure and purpose, pointing out how its underlying concepts remained remarkably aligned with modern systems. Students were encouraged to see through the historical biases that once obscured her brilliance, and to understand the methods she used to solve problems creatively. In this way, her life became intertwined with the future of engineering, teaching new minds to question limitations and embrace imagination. The digital world expanded each year, forming a vast network of interconnected systems that relied on secure wireless communication. Millions of signals traveled through the air every second, each one protected by principles that reflected her early thinking. Devices ranging from medical instruments to transportation networks depended on the resilience offered by frequency hopping and spread spectrum design. Hedy's idea became an invisible guardian of modern connectivity, ensuring stability in an increasingly complex world. The more society learned about her, the more people reflected on the tragedy of her being ignored for so long. Her beauty had overshadowed her intellect, and her gender had been used to dismiss her ideas during a time when scientific fields were resistant to female innovators. This combination had caused her most significant contribution to be forgotten in the very moment it mattered most. In retrospect, her experience became a powerful example of how prejudice can distort history. Her resurgence also reshaped conversations about creativity and its origins. People realized that innovation often emerges from unexpected places and thrives in those willing to examine problems from unusual perspectives. Hedy's ability to blend knowledge from the arts with her understanding of mechanics and communication systems revealed how interdisciplinary thinking fuels groundbreaking ideas. Her creativity was not a coincidence. It was a natural extension of a mind unconfined by boundaries. As more people engaged with her legacy, her films gained renewed interest. Audiences watched her performances not solely for their cinematic value, but with knowledge of the intellect behind them, noticing subtleties in her expressions that previously went unrecognized. Her characters seemed to carry traces of the inner world she kept private, a world of curiosity, observation, and quiet analysis. Seeing her through this new lens added emotional depth to her films that had been invisible for decades. Her story became a source of pride for Austria, her birthplace, which honored her through memorials, educational programs, and public exhibits. These tributes emphasized both her artistic achievements and her scientific brilliance, presenting her as one of the nation's most influential figures. Young students in Austria learned her name not only as a film icon, but as an important inventor whose ideas shaped global communication. In her homeland, she finally received the recognition she had long deserved. Meanwhile, researchers continued advancing technologies that built upon her invention, refining secure communication systems in ways that deepened their connection to her early vision. Encrypted signals became more sophisticated as engineers introduced adaptive algorithms that embraced her idea of unpredictable patterns. Wireless networks learned to adjust dynamically to interference, shifting across frequencies with precision and fluidity that echoed the foundations she helped create. Each improvement reaffirmed the enduring brilliance of her original concept, proving that the core of her insight remained vital through every stage of technological evolution. The cultural world also embraced her legacy with a renewed sense of admiration, celebrating her as a visionary whose mind had traveled far beyond the constraints of her time. Artists painted murals blending her portrait with sweeping waves of coded frequencies, symbolizing the invisible architecture she helped build. Writers explored her emotional journey in novels, essays, and stage productions that emphasized the conflict between her inner genius and the world that misunderstood her. Through these artistic interpretations, Hedy became a symbol of unrealized potential, resilience, and the courage to continue dreaming despite years of obscurity. Her life challenged deeply ingrained assumptions about what an inventor should look like, revealing the limitations of society's expectations and the ways they often obscure true brilliance. She showed that intelligence could flourish outside laboratories and universities, thriving instead in the curiosity of those who explore boldly and without permission. Many people who felt out of place in their chosen paths found comfort in her example, recognizing in her journey a reminder that talent is not defined by background or stereotype. By existing as she did, Hedy opened doors for others who might otherwise have been overlooked. Technology companies began acknowledging her influence with genuine respect, integrating her name into discussions about the origins of modern wireless systems. Conferences highlighted her contribution alongside major scientific breakthroughs, offering overdue recognition to the woman who once struggled to be taken seriously. Awards honoring innovative thinkers were named after her, celebrating those who approached problems with the same imaginative courage she embodied. In this way, her presence reshaped the culture of engineering, reminding the field to value creativity from every source. As the global reliance on wireless systems deepened, the scale of her impact became increasingly visible in the infrastructure that supported daily life. Industries around the world operated on networks that relied on secure signal protocols derived from ideas she once put to paper in relative isolation. During natural disasters and large-scale emergencies, resilient communication channels, grounded in variants of her frequency-hopping logic, protected lives by maintaining stable connections. Her invention had evolved from a wartime concept into a guardian of global safety and modern convenience. Her life also inspired discussions in psychology and sociology, as scholars examined how identity and perception shaped her experiences. They explored how Hollywood's expectations forced her into a narrow role, overshadowing the intellectual depth she carried privately and causing emotional isolation despite her fame. These studies revealed how easily society can misinterpret complex individuals, reducing them to a single characteristic while ignoring the layers beneath. Through this lens, her story became even more relevant, illuminating the consequences of superficial judgment. As her legacy took deeper root, people around the world felt compelled to honor the fullness of her life. Exhibits appeared in museums, educational programs shared her story with young students, and her name found its place among lists of the most influential inventors of the 20th century. These tributes reframed her identity, ensuring she was no longer remembered solely for her beauty, but for the vast intelligence that had shaped modern communication. Hedy Lamarr had finally become recognized as the multifaceted pioneer she truly was. Her story also encouraged personal reflection among those who felt underestimated or overlooked, showing them that delayed recognition does not diminish the value of their contributions. People found comfort in knowing that someone as misunderstood as Hedy could still influence the world in extraordinary ways. Her life taught that brilliance may go unnoticed for many years, but genuine impact endures beyond the barriers of time and perception. This message resonated deeply with audiences who connected with her quiet strength. Through the expanding reach of wireless networks, her invention continued to shape daily life, connecting billions of people through systems that owed their resilience to her imagination. Families called across continents, businesses operated across borders, and information moved instantaneously between devices because of ideas she once developed in solitude. These everyday miracles existed because she dared to envision a world built on signals that could glide across frequencies with elegant precision. Her vision had become an essential part of global communication, touching every moment in ways she never witnessed. In the end, Hedy Lamarr's legacy revealed that genius is measured not by immediate praise, but by the endurance of an idea that outlives its creator. She proved that quiet imagination can reshape the world even when recognition arrives decades too late. Her story continues to remind people to look beyond appearances, to trust the spark of creativity, and to honor those who dream in silence. Through her resilience and boundless curiosity, she redefined not only wireless communication, but the world's understanding of human potential. As the 21st century continued unfolding, the world became more connected than any generation before it, bound together by streams of wireless communication that flowed across continents with silent ease. Every message, every call, every invisible signal carried a fractional imprint of the system Hedy Lamarr once imagined in a quiet room with nothing more than curiosity to guide her. Her brilliance traveled through the unseen architecture of modern life, proving that ideas, when powerful enough, can transcend their origin. She had become part of the world's digital heartbeat. Her story was now included in classrooms across the globe, woven into lessons about innovation and the unexpected places where breakthroughs emerge. Students listened with fascination as teachers explained how an actress, once considered merely glamorous, helped shape the foundation of secure communication. They learned that brilliance is not determined by credentials or conventional paths, but by the courage to explore what others overlook. Through her example, they discovered that creativity is often born in the quiet intersections of unlikely experiences. The more the world embraced her legacy, the more people began questioning the historical systems that had kept her achievements hidden for so long. Discussions in academic circles explored how gender, image, and expectation had converged to obscure the contributions of countless women in science. Hedy's story served as a catalyst for examining these patterns, encouraging institutions to elevate overlooked voices. Her life became a reminder that the boundaries society creates are often the very obstacles that hold back progress. As wireless technology entered new phases of evolution, her invention remained a cornerstone beneath the rapid expansion of global communication. Engineers refined protocols, introduced advanced encryption, and pushed signals across greater distances. Yet the fundamental logic behind these systems traced back to her early patent. With every new upgrade, her influence echoed from the past into the future, anchoring the digital world with the strength of her insight. Her presence was felt not in monuments, but in the everyday flow of information. Her story also inspired millions who had never imagined themselves as innovators. People from artistic backgrounds found hope in her example, realizing that creativity does not belong exclusively to one world or discipline. She showed that the ability to think differently is often the strongest foundation for discovery. In her life, they saw proof that ideas do not require permission, only persistence and belief. As her recognition spread, countries around the world honored her contributions with exhibitions, memorials, and public tributes. Museums displayed her patent alongside modern devices, showing the direct lineage from her wartime concept to the systems powering the modern age. Conferences highlighted her as a key figure in communication history, ensuring her name stood beside those long credited for shaping technology. Her story had become global, a universal symbol of underestimated genius. The entertainment industry also embraced her memory with renewed sincerity. Filmmakers created documentaries exploring her inner world, revealing a woman far more complex than the silver screen role she once portrayed. Biographers wrote about the emotional weight she carried as a misunderstood inventor. Audiences discovered the depth of a woman whose brilliance had gone unseen for decades. Her legacy grew richer with each retelling, each new generation discovering her story with fresh eyes. Children learned her name not as a Hollywood legend, but as an inventor whose ideas changed the world. Young women entering science saw her as proof that intelligence thrives even in environments not designed to welcome it. Hedy's life became a timeless reminder that genius often requires resilience. As her influence expanded, researchers began exploring new theories that built upon the principles she helped define. Quantum communication, adaptive frequency systems, and future wireless platforms all owed something to the conceptual groundwork she provided. Her invention had seeded multiple fields of innovation, growing far beyond its original purpose. She had become an ancestor of modern communication, a silent mentor guiding generations of development. Her story also became a reminder of how fragile recognition can be. She lived most of her life believing her invention had been forgotten, unaware of the global transformation it would one day support. This truth struck a deep emotional chord with audiences who understood what it meant to feel overlooked. Her life showed that impact is not measured by immediate applause, but by the quiet endurance of an idea. The world she once helped shape grew exponentially more connected, forming a digital ecosystem that relied entirely on secure, resilient communication. Business, medicine, travel, entertainment, every corner of modern life depended on systems built upon her foundational insight. Her work had become a universal utility, invisible yet indispensable. Few innovators in history had achieved such far-reaching influence, especially without seeing it recognized in their time. As information moved freely across borders, her legacy extended into humanitarian realms as well. Emergency response teams used wireless systems to coordinate rescues, trace missing individuals, and maintain critical communication during disasters. Her concept helped safeguard lives in moments of chaos, giving her invention a significance far beyond technological convenience. Her idea became both a comfort and a lifeline for people around the world. Her story also prompted deeper reflection on identity, how people see themselves versus how they are seen. Hedy had lived in contradiction, admired for her beauty, yet dismissed for her intellect, cherished by audiences, yet isolated by her own loneliness. Her journey illustrated the pain of being misunderstood and the courage required to keep dreaming in silence. This emotional truth became one of the most powerful parts of her legacy. Through all the conversation, celebration, and reinterpretation, one thing became clear. Hedy Lamarr had changed the world in a way few people ever do. She transformed communication through an idea so elegant that it survived decades of evolution. Her invention proved that brilliance is not limited by background, profession, or circumstance. Her influence is now carried by billions of wireless interactions each day, embedded in every connection people make with one another. She exists in the quiet spaces between signals, in the invisible threads linking cities, families, and ideas across the globe. Her mind lives on in the very fabric of digital communication, and because of this, her legacy will never fade. As wireless networks continued expanding, her relevance only grew stronger, crossing into the age of artificial intelligence, decentralized systems, and global digital infrastructure. Researchers believed her thinking could inspire entirely new forms of communication not yet imagined. Her presence, though subtle, remained grounded in the logic every modern system relied upon. She had become a constant, a quiet architect behind a connected world. With each new discovery, society embraced more fully the woman who had once been reduced to a single narrative. Her life had proved that identity is layered and limitless, and that true genius thrives beyond expectations. Hedy Lamarr became a symbol not just of innovation, but of the human spirit's resilience and desire to create. Her journey reminded everyone that the world often needs time to understand the brilliance it once overlooked. Her legacy continued to grow as more people found meaning in her story. Dreamers, inventors, artists, scientists all saw in her a reflection of their own desire to contribute something meaningful. She became a voice for those who worked quietly in the background, believing their ideas mattered even if the world hadn't realized it yet. Through her life, they understood that impact begins with imagination. Hedy Lamarr's story has no true ending because her influence persists through every wireless interaction occurring at this very moment. Her mind lives in the signals that move through the air, in the devices that connect us, and in the networks that hold our world together. She remains part of the background hum of modern life, unseen but essential, quiet but unyielding. Her brilliance, once overlooked, now travels endlessly across the frequencies she helped envision. And so, as the world drifts deeper into its connected future, Hedy Lamarr's brilliance continues moving silently through the air around us. Every signal, every transmission, every quiet leap across an unseen frequency carries the imprint of her imagination. She is still here, in the invisible architecture of our lives, in the gentle pulse of wireless communication, in the quiet proof that ideas outlive the moments that birth them. Tonight, as you close your eyes and settle into rest, know that the world remains connected by the vision of a woman who dreamed far beyond her time. A woman who saw possibility where others saw limitation. A woman whose genius now travels through every corner of the modern world. Sleep softly, knowing that even in silence, brilliance continues to shape the world, and Hedy Lamarr's spirit moves gently through every connection that lights the night.